Hey everyone, welcome back to Inside Thailand. Today's story comes from Eddie, a retired British man who thought he was playing it smart in Bangkok. No bars, no games, no drama. Just a quiet woman he met at a cafe and a connection that felt real. But what started as something sweet slowly twisted into something else. And by the time Eddie saw the truth, it was already too late. Stick around, this one hurts. Here's his story in his own words. Hey, I'm not much of a writer, so forgive me if this comes out in a bit of a tangle. My name's Eddie. I'm 54 from Manchester, and I've spent most of my life fixing broken machinery in a food factory that smelled like vinegar and metal shavings. I came out to Bangkok because I wanted a bit of peace after the accident payout. Not a fortune, but enough to stop worrying about whether I can afford a pint or a takeaway on the same night. People think that means you're rich, but it just means you can finally breathe without counting coins. Anyway, I'm writing to you because I keep seeing these stories about men getting themselves into all sorts of messes over here, and I keep thinking, I'm not like that. I've always considered myself someone who can read a situation. I'm not easily pushed around. I don't fall for sob stories. I'm steady as they come. The kind of man who checks the fuel gauge twice, even on a short drive. That sort of bloke. Which is why what happened to me still feels strange, like memory playing tricks. When I landed in Bangkok, I promised myself I wouldn't go chasing women or trying to play the hero. I'd just enjoy the weather, eat food I didn't cook myself, maybe lose a bit of weight walking around. I wasn't lonely exactly, just out of practice being around people who aren't co-workers arguing about shift rotations. The truth is, I thought I had everything under control. I rented a small condo, nothing fancy, but tidy enough. I learned a few Thai phrases so I wouldn't look like one of those clueless tourists I kept to myself. I drank water instead of beer most days. I thought this was going to be the calmest chapter of my life. No drama, no surprises, just sunshine and cheap lunches. I didn't come here for romance. Honestly, I didn't even think it was an option. Women back home barely looked at me twice unless they wanted something heavy lifted. So when this whole thing happened, when I found myself pulled into something I should have seen coming from a mile off, it shook me more than I care to admit. I still don't really understand how it all started, how I let myself get swept up in it, or why I ignored signs that now look painfully obvious. But I swear to you, at the start of all this, I genuinely believed I was doing everything right. I thought I'd cracked the code other men couldn't. I thought I was untouchable. That's why I'm writing. Because looking back, I realise I'm not as clever as I thought. And maybe talking through it will help me make sense of how a simple, sensible bloke like me ended up losing more than I ever expected. It started on one of those blistering Bangkok afternoons where even the dogs look like they've given up. I ducked into Icon Siam to cool off and kill a bit of time I wasn't shopping, mine just walking around to stretch my legs and let the air conditioning do its thing. That's when I saw her. She was sat alone in a cafe near the escalators, hunched over a book with a highlighter in one hand and a half-drunk iced tea in the other. Nothing flashy, no designer bag, no fake lashes, none of that. She looked like she'd just come off a shift in some sensible job, like admin or accounting. You know the type. Hair tied back neat, blouse buttoned high, sleeves rolled up like she meant business. I don't know what possessed me, but I said hello, just a polite, harmless hello. She looked up, gave me this tiny smile, and replied in perfect English, "Are you lost?" That should have been my first warning sign. She had me clocked straight away. But I laughed, made some daft joke about always being a bit lost, and sat down across from her before I'd even thought about whether she wanted me there. She didn't tell me to sod off, though. In fact, she closed her book, asked where I was from, and we started chatting. Her name was Nisha. She said she worked in retail logistics. Didn't explain much beyond that. just that she helped move products from warehouses to stores. Sounded legit. She told me she used to live in Nakhon Ratchasima, but moved to Bangkok for better pay. She'd been here 3 years, lived with a cousin, said she was single, focused on work. She spoke clearly, smiled softly, didn't flirt too hard, just enough to make you feel noticed without it feeling cheap. We talked for over an hour. She asked about England, about what I did. I told her I used to fix packing machines, the sort that make plastic food trays not glamorous, but it paid. She listened. That's what got me. She actually listened. Not the nodding along kind of listening, but real, eyes on you, fingers tapping the table, listening. I hadn't had that in years. She gave me her line ID before she left, said she had to catch the BTS to go meet her cousin. I didn't even ask for her number. She offered it. That meant something to me at the time. Still does, if I'm honest. That night, I told myself I'd message her tomorrow. Play it cool. But I didn't last half an hour. I sent her a quick thanks for the chat text, and she replied straight away with a photo of her drink, joking that I'd made her miss her second iced tea. I thought, all right, this one's different. She wasn't a bar girl. She wasn't hustling me. She didn't ask for money, didn't fish for compliments, didn't dress like she wanted attention. She was smart, funny, had a real job. That was all I needed to know, and that was exactly the problem. I didn't ask anything else. Didn't want to look too suspicious. Didn't want to ruin the feeling. Looking back, that cafe table was the crime scene. I just didn't know what had been stolen yet. We started seeing each other properly after that, couple times a week, then most days, always after her shifts. She said she finished work around 6, but traffic made it closer to 7. I told her not to rush. I'd wait wherever was easiest. She liked the little night market near Siam, not the tourist side, the bit behind the footbridge where locals actually eat. I always paid. Of course I did. She offered. Every time, actually. She'd do this thing where she reached into her bag, kind of fumbled around for her purse, then looked up at me and smiled like she already knew the answer, and I'd say, nah, love, let me get this one. It wasn't about trying to impress her. I just didn't see the point in splitting a bill over 80 baht pork rice when I'd spent 20 years eating alone in the dark. She never ordered the expensive stuff. That's what I liked. She wasn't greedy, wouldn't touch seafood unless I ordered it. Never once asked for dessert, said she didn't like sweets. I believed her. Thought maybe I'd finally found a woman who wasn't just after the wallet. Sometimes she'd forget her umbrella and get soaked on the way to meet me. I bought her one with a strawberry pattern from the 7-Eleven near my condo. She left it in my room twice. I bought her another. One time her flip-flops snapped walking down a wet footpath near Ceylon. She tried to laugh it off, but I could see she was embarrassed. I told her we'd pop into the first shop and get her a better pair. She said no, but I insisted, ended up buying her sandals and a new tote bag because the old one was falling apart at the strap. She was grateful. Always grateful. Said I was a real gentleman. Said most Thai guys wouldn't care. One night she told me she never met a man who noticed small things, like the way her blouse button was loose, or that she needed new phone credit before she even mentioned it. That meant something to me. It made me feel seen, like I wasn't just some aging farang in a foreign country, but someone who still had value. I bought her a hairbrush, a proper one, not the cheap plastic kind. I bought her moisturiser. She said her skin was dry. I even got her one of those little Bluetooth speakers for her room. She never asked. That's the thing. She never had to. I just liked making sure she had what she needed. I wanted her to feel cared for. I didn't keep track of what I spent. It wasn't thousands. Maybe a couple £100 here and there. Nothing that broke the bank. And I didn't feel used. I felt useful. That's a very different thing. Or at least it was in my head at the time. There's a kind of joy in giving someone something without being asked, especially when you've spent your whole life being overlooked. She made me feel like I mattered, not because of the stuff I bought, but because she kept coming back. So what if I was always the one foot in the bill? That's what men do, right? You take care of the woman you like. You don't think about the maths. You think about the smile. And hers was worth every bloody bat, or so I thought. It happened about a month in. We were supposed to meet at Central World after her shift. Nothing special, just grab a bite, maybe walk around a bit. I even got there early. Found a bench near the fountain, sat down with a bottle of water and waited. 7 o'clock, then past. I sent her a quick line message. Just said, "Here when you are." No reply. 8:15 I tried calling, straight to voicemail. I remember telling myself her battery must have died. Maybe she got caught up with some work emergency. It happens. I sat there for nearly 2 hours, staring at couples walking past like I was the only man in Bangkok who didn't get the memo. Around 9:30 I gave up, got the BTS home, didn't eat, just sat in my room, phone in hand, refreshing our chat window like an idiot. Nothing. No reply. No read receipt. I barely slept that night. Next morning, just after 10, she finally messaged, said sorry for the silence, claimed there was a system outage at her warehouse, said the stock data crashed and they had to stay late doing manual counts. She said her phone died, she couldn't call, and by the time she finished it was too late to meet. Now look, I'm not completely brain dead. I knew it sounded a bit flimsy, but when she sent me a voice note, her tone was soft, tired, almost teary. She said, "I hope you're not mad. I was really looking forward to seeing you." That did it. I melted like a fool. I told her it was all right, said I understood, told her to rest and that I'd make her dinner tomorrow night if she had time. She replied with a heart emoji and a selfie in bed, just her face, no makeup, hair messy, looked sweet, vulnerable. That photo stayed in my head all day. I kept looking at it like it was proof. Proof she wasn't lying, that she was trying her best, that she cared. Of course, I didn't ask why she didn't just borrow a phone from a co-worker, or use the warehouse landline, or send a message the next morning before 10, because I didn't want to go down that road. I didn't want to make her feel accused. I thought, if I start treating her like every other man probably does, with suspicion, then what makes me any different? So I said nothing. I let it slide. And that became a habit, letting things slide. Just tiny things, barely worth mentioning, until they weren't. A couple weeks after that, I was browsing Facebook on my laptop while eating instant noodles. Yeah, I know what that sounds like, but I wasn't skint or anything. I just fancied something salty and quick, wasn't in the mood to go out. Nisha had cancelled again, said she was helping her cousin move house. Anyway, I was scrolling, half distracted, and one of those "you might also like" pages popped up. Usually it's useless rubbish, second-hand furniture, dodgy watches, the odd ladyboy bar ad, but this one said Lotus Lounge Bangkok. Some kind of cocktail bar. I nearly clicked past it until I caught a glimpse of something familiar in the preview image. I clicked, and there she was, front and centre in a group photo, wearing a tight red uniform, cleavage showing, heels on, hair done up in curls, arm draped around some Korean-looking bloke, big smile, glossy lips, standing under a neon sign that said Champagne Girls of the Month. I just sat there, staring, zoomed in to make sure it was really her. It was, no question. Caption said something like, "Shout out to Nisha for being our top earner this week. Our customers love her." Love her. Top earner. I must have read it 10 times before I shut the laptop. My mouth felt dry. My face went hot, then cold, Like someone had turned a switch inside me. I wasn't even angry yet. I just felt humiliated. Like someone had pulled my trousers down in a crowded room and everyone else had known except me. I didn't know what to do. Should I message her? Call her out? Ask for an explanation? Or just block her and move on? Any normal man would have walked, shut the door and never looked back. But not me. I spent the rest of that night convincing myself it had to be a mistake. Maybe it was an old photo. Maybe someone tagged her without asking. Maybe she helped out for one night because her cousin asked. She never said what kind of bar it was after all. Maybe it wasn't even a bar. Maybe it was one of those promotional gigs. I had excuse after excuse lined up. And the worst part? A tiny quiet part of me was hoping it was all true. Because if it was, then I could still believe what we had was real. I could still believe she smiled at me because she liked me, not because I was another wallet with a heartbeat. That was the moment I should have ended it. That was the sign, bright as a bloody lighthouse, and I saw it. I just didn't want to go back into the dark, and I didn't sleep the night I saw that photo. I just laid there in the dark, phone on my chest, replaying it in my head like a broken record, her outfit, her body language, the neon sign behind her. I kept trying to convince myself I'd misread it, or that there was some perfectly reasonable explanation that didn't involve me being made a mug of. Next afternoon I messaged her, "Hey, fancy a burger later? Found a decent spot near Victory Monument." She replied within a few minutes, "Sure. 8 okay?" I stared at the screen for a while before I replied. I wanted to scream, to rage at her, to throw the phone across the bloody balcony, but I didn't. I told myself if I went in angry, I'd push her away. And I didn't want to lose her. That's the sick part. I was more scared of being alone again than I was of being lied to. She showed up at 8 on the dot, same as always. Casual outfit, little crossbody purse, hair in a ponytail, zero makeup, not a trace of the woman from the Lotus Lounge photo. If I hadn't seen the evidence, I wouldn't have suspected a thing. She even gave me a quick hug. I just stood there like a plank, my mouth dry as dust. We ordered inside cheeseburgers and fries. I let her pick the table. She chose one near the window, said she liked to watch the traffic. I nodded, sat across from her, and let her chat for 10 minutes about how her cousin was trying to sell fake designer bags on TikTok. I didn't hear half of it. I was watching her face, her hands, waiting for the right moment. When our food arrived, I didn't touch mine. I opened Facebook, pulled up the page again, and zoomed in on the photo. Then I turned the screen toward her and said quietly, "Nisha, what's this?" She looked. No flinch, no gasp. Just this long, uncomfortable pause. Then she shrugged lightly, sipped her Coke and said, "That's old." "Old?" I asked. "Like, how old?" She put her drink down, looked at me, and gave this tired little smile, like she was annoyed I'd even brought it up. "Few months ago, maybe longer," she said. "My cousin used to work there. They were short on staff one weekend. She asked me to help. Just one night. Pour drinks. Smile. No dancing. Nothing bad." Her voice was soft, flat, no panic in it. That's what made it worse. It was too calm. "They posted the photo later without telling me," she added. "I didn't even know it was up." I kept looking at her, trying to figure out if any of that was true, but she didn't crack, didn't avoid eye contact. She just stared back at me, cool as anything, like this was all beneath her. "Why didn't you just tell me?" I asked. "Because I knew you'd think I was that kind of girl," she said. "And I'm not. You don't know what it's like, Eddie. Rent here is expensive. Work pays bad. Sometimes you help family. Just for a little while." She took a fry, dipped it in ketchup, ate it. "I only did it once," she said again. "I didn't even like it. It was noisy. Smelled like smoke. And the men there, she shook her head, they stare like you're a thing. That last bit hit me in the gut. Because she was talking about them like I was different. Like I wasn't one of those men. And I wanted that to be true so badly. I nodded. I actually nodded like I understood. It threw me, I mumbled. Seeing the photo, it caught me off guard. She softened her voice even more, reached across the table and touched my hand. I would never lie to you, Eddie. Not about something important. I like you. You're kind. You listen. I didn't say anything. Just let her hold my hand. The rest of the meal passed like nothing happened. She chatted about her aunt in Korat, showed me a meme on her phone, took a photo of the burger like it was a date to remember I paid, of course. No hesitation. And when we walked out onto the street, she hugged me like she hadn't just rewritten reality in front of my eyes. She said, "Can I get a grab? BTS is crowded." I pulled out my phone before she even asked, booked it, upgraded to a nicer car, tipped the driver extra before she got in because she said he looked tired. I watched the car pull away, heart thudding like I'd just survived something dangerous. And maybe I had. Maybe I dodged a bullet. Or maybe I just handed the gun back to the person holding it. But I told myself I'd done the right thing. That trust matters more than suspicion. That good women don't deserve to be punished for their past. And that's how I stayed in the trap, smiling, holding the knife myself. A few nights later, I was in my condo, half watching some dull Thai soap with the fan buzzing in the background when my phone rang. It was the security guard downstairs. He spoke decent enough English to get the point across. "There's a Thai man here. He says your girlfriend lives with you. He's shouting. I think you should come down." For a second, I thought it had to be a mistake. Maybe he meant another unit. Maybe it was some drunk looking for the wrong building. I threw on a t-shirt, grabbed my keys, and went down in the lift, stomach turning over like bad street food. As soon as I stepped into the lobby, I spotted him. Short, stocky, late 30s maybe. Hair slicked back, gold chain, big Adidas jacket, even though it was bloody humid and absolutely steaming drunk. He was pointing at the security desk, waving his phone, shouting Nisha's name over and over like it was a curse. He spotted me and stormed over, eyes full of fire. "Where is she?" he said. "Where is Nisha?" I held my hands up and told him to calm down. I said I didn't know what he was talking about. He pushed me. Not hard, but enough to let me know he was serious. The guards moved in fast, grabbed his arms and dragged him outside. He kept yelling as they shoved him toward the gate, still trying to twist back around to shout at me. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. I just sat at my kitchen counter staring at my phone, waiting for it to buzz. When she finally messaged the next morning, I told her what happened. She replied instantly, way faster than usual, said, "He's nobody. Crazy. I dated him long ago. He can't let go." Then, a few minutes later, "He's not dangerous, just drunk. I'm so sorry." And that was that. She didn't offer more, didn't explain how he knew where I lived, or why he was so sure she was staying with me. But I didn't push. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But I told myself it was better not to cause problems. Better to be supportive. Maybe this guy really was some sad ex. Bangkok's full of blokes who can't move on. Maybe she'd told him about me and he'd snapped. I even started defending her in my own head. Thought, maybe this was proof she was serious about me. Maybe this man showing up meant she'd finally cut ties with the past, that she was trying to move forward with someone who treated her right. Someone like me. Later that day, she sent me a sticker of a sad cartoon bear holding a flower. Then she asked if I wanted to come over the next evening. I said yes, without thinking, like a child being offered a sweet after a scolding. I told myself everything was back to normal, but nothing was normal anymore. I just didn't have the backbone to admit it. I went to her place the next night like nothing had happened. I even picked up some pastries from a little shop near Planchit on the way. I thought it'd be a nice gesture. Show her I wasn't angry, that I trusted her, that I was different. That line kept bouncing around in my head like a bad chorus. You're different. You're not like the others. She never actually said it outright, but it was always there between the lines. She greeted me in slippers and a loose t-shirt that made her look younger somehow. Said she'd made dinner. Rice with some egg and veggies. Simple stuff. I told her it looked amazing, even though I'd seen better presentation in a hospital tray. She laughed and said, "Don't complain, I'm not your maid." Then she sat beside me, curled her feet under herself, and asked how my day was. Just like that. No mention of the man at my condo lobby screaming her name. So I brought it up. I said, "Look, Nisha, I need to understand what's going on. That guy wasn't acting like a stranger. He knew where I lived. He was furious." She went quiet, stirred her food for a while. Then she sighed and leaned back against the couch, eyes on the ceiling like she was trying to gather strength. "He's my ex," she said finally. "We broke up a long time ago. We lived together before, just roommates at first. I was struggling. He helped me, but then he started drinking. He was controlling." Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. "He hit me once." My stomach flipped. I felt a lump rising in my throat. I told her I was sorry, that she didn't have to talk about it if it hurt. She nodded, still staring into space. "He saw me with you one day," she said. "At the BTS. He started messaging me again. I ignored him, but he must have followed me. That's how he knew." None of it sounded right. It didn't explain why the man knew her name, my building. Didn't explain how he looked like he belonged, like he'd been there before. But I kept my mouth shut. Because what was I supposed to do? Call her a liar after she told me something like that? I told her she could always be honest with me, that I'd never judge her. She reached out and touched my cheek with her fingers. It was gentle cold. She said, "You're too good sometimes, maybe too kind for this country." I wanted to believe that was a compliment. I wanted to believe everything she said. We didn't talk about it again that night. We just sat there watching some variety show, her head resting on my shoulder like we were in a real relationship. She kept glancing at her phone every few minutes, typing quick replies to someone I couldn't see. I told myself it was her cousin, or maybe her friend from work I didn't ask. I didn't want to ruin the moment. That was the pattern now. She would give me just enough of the truth to keep me around, and I would take it like a dog takes scraps from the table, grateful, quiet, eyes full of hope. And the worst part was, I thought I was being patient. I thought I was handling it well. I thought she'd open up more over time, that she just needed to feel safe. I didn't realize that I wasn't earning her trust. I was just being managed, carefully, quietly, like a tool you don't want to break because you're still getting use out of it. It all came crashing down about a week later. I was at home, scrolling through line messages while waiting for a grab order. Nisha had gone quiet again, said she was at a family dinner in Thornbury, helping her aunt with something. I'd offered to come along, even suggested bringing flowers. She said it wasn't a good time, that it was too Thai. I laughed along, pretended that I understood, told her to take photos so I could see the food. She didn't reply. Later that night, I got a message request from an unknown line ID. Just a profile picture of a bar logo and a name in Thai I couldn't read. Thought it was spam at first. Then the first message came through. "Are you the Farang dating Nisha?" I stared at the screen. My first instinct was to ignore it, but curiosity won. I replied, "Who's asking?" What followed was about 5 minutes of pure gut punch. The man said he was the manager at Lotus Lounge, the same place where I'd seen that cursed photo weeks earlier. He said he recognised me from Nisha's phone. She'd shown him a picture of me once, said I was a sweet one, said I was paying her bills, buying her things, and that she kept me on the side because I wasn't pushy. I told him he was lying. He replied with another photo, one I hadn't seen before, Nisha behind the bar, pouring a drink, leaning over so far her neckline left nothing to the imagination, not from months ago, from last week. I knew because she was wearing the same bracelet I'd just given her, a little silver one with her nickname etched on the charm. I said that could be an old photo too. He replied, "She was working last night. I was there. She left with a customer." I felt sick, like something was pressing against my chest from the inside. My hands were shaking. I asked him why he was telling me this. He said he was tired of seeing good guys get played, said she'd done it before, multiple times. Different foreigners, same routine, gifts, dinners, affection. Then she'd rinse them until they got suspicious and left. That was her system. He told me the drunk man who showed up at my condo. That wasn't her ex, that was her real boyfriend. On and off for 5 years. They fight, they make up, they break up, they stay together. Always the same cycle. I didn't respond for a long time. Eventually I just typed, "Thanks." I sat there on the edge of my bed for what felt like hours, phone face down on the blanket. My food had gone cold in the bag on the floor. I didn't touch it, didn't move, just stared at nothing and listened to the hum of the fridge. And still, even with all that staring me in the face, I found myself thinking, maybe this guy just wanted to stir the pot. Maybe he had a grudge. Maybe he was jealous. Maybe he liked her too. That was the line I clung to, the same line I'd been gripping the whole time. Maybe. Maybe she lied a little. Maybe she needed the money. Maybe she wasn't proud of her job. Maybe she was going to leave it soon. Maybe I could save her. That was the worst lie of all. Not the ones she told me, but the ones I started telling myself. Because the truth wasn't that she fooled me. The truth was, I let her, over and over again. Because the fantasy of being wanted felt better than the reality of being alone. I know what you're thinking. I can hear it already. You're shouting at the screen, calling me a muppet, a doormat, a blind old fool. And maybe you're right. Maybe I am. But if you've never been lonely, truly lonely, the kind that creeps into your bones and makes everything feel colder than it really is, then you don't understand what it's like to have someone look at you like you matter, even if it's all pretend. I didn't message Nisha after that, not for a few days. I just went quiet, needed time to think, to figure out what the hell I was even doing anymore. But she messaged me first, of course, said she missed me, asked if I was okay. I told her I was just busy, a bit under the weather. She said she'd come over. I told her not to, said I needed space. That was 3 weeks ago. I haven't seen her since. But here's the part that really gets me. I still don't hate her. I know what she did. I'm not stupid. She used me. She played me. She smiled and lied and let me carry her through a life I was never part of. She kept one hand on my shoulder and the other in my wallet. But I don't think she was cruel, not deep down. I think she did what she thought she had to do. Maybe she was tired. Maybe she was surviving. Maybe she'd done it so long she didn't even see it as wrong anymore. And maybe that's what makes it worse. Because I wanted to be the man who changed things for her. I wanted to be the good one. The one who didn't ask for anything but honesty. The one who showed her a different life. And instead, I became just another name on a long list of men who gave too much and expected too little. I've deleted her number, blocked her online, hidden her photos, but I still think about her. Sometimes I wonder what she's doing, if she's all right, if she ever thinks about me even for a second. Not the money, not the gifts, not the meals, just me. The quiet man who looked at her like she was made of something rare. I don't regret meeting her. I regret believing that I could love someone into loving me back. But maybe that's just what men like me do. We come here hoping to find something real in a place built on performance. We ignore the signs, we play along. And when it all falls apart, we tell ourselves it was almost real. Almost. And sometimes, almost is enough to break you. And that was Eddie's story. A man who came to Thailand thinking he was too smart to be fooled, too experienced, too grounded. He thought other men got scammed because they were desperate or careless or just plain stupid. But Eddie wasn't any of those things. He was lonely. He wanted to believe someone saw him. Not for his money, not for his age, but for who he was, and Nisha gave him just enough to believe that. Just enough silence, just enough sweetness, just enough of a story to keep him hanging on. He paid for dinners, for bags, for taxis, for comfort. He paid in ways he still doesn't fully understand. And even after the truth showed up in his inbox plain as day, Eddie still found a way to protect her, because if he admitted she used him, then he'd have to admit that what they had wasn't real. And that's the hardest truth of all. Stories like this aren't just about money. They're about what people are willing to give away just to feel wanted. If you've seen something like this happen or lived through it yourself, tell us in the comments. We want to hear your truth. And if you want more real stories from the expat side of Thailand, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss an episode of Inside Thailand. Thanks for watching.